What is meditation? Why is it something that's beneficial in light of the story that at least I just told? And how is it something that you believe we all should be really partaking in?
A lot of times I think people have a narrow view of what meditation is. I break down meditation into kind of five paths that you can follow. There is more of the athletic path, and if you look at professional sports these days, there's all kinds of athletes practicing the meditative arts to help improve their performance. It's
Right.
great for being more present, being more focused, keeping that mind body awareness, understanding concepts like yielding, all of these things that help them perform at a higher level. Then there's the therapeutic side of the practice, which is good for our health and longevity. There's the medical side of the practice, which all of Chinese medicine is based off of Qigong theory, which has been around for 4,000 years. Then there's the philosophical side of the practice, which is something that I've always been passionate about. And the reason why I'm so drawn to it is that I love that it opens up your peripheral vision and helps you see things from multiple different angles to be more strategic, to be more settled and present when things happen. And then there's also the spiritual side of the practice, which people study for the majority of their life, reaching that ultimate goal of enlightenment. And so any one of those meditative paths you can incorporate things from movement practices, still practices, from breath work, from philosophical concepts, and build an evolving life practice with the meditative arts. And there's so many benefits that come from the practice. I mentioned earlier, I've heard hundreds of stories through the years about how it's helped people with their health and getting through illnesses and dealing with stress disorders and just so many different things. And so it really is, if you're somebody thinking about the practice, if you put the time in, it'll be one of the best things you've ever done for yourself.
So break it down for me, kind of brass tacks. What is meditation, and how do you kind of start with the process of just embarking on it? Do you need an app? Do you need to, buy a meditation bench?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that because I think a lot of people these days are uncertain of what meditation is, and so they'll go out and they'll watch some YouTube channels or they'll get an app and while I think that could be a piece of your education, and there are some good things out there to pull from. In fact, even we at the Yielding Warrior here have an online program that teaches the people how to build an evolving life practice. So one of the things that I find most difficult and challenging as a teacher for over 30 years is getting people to get into the practice enough to where they start seeing the benefits so they make it a way of life. And, I've tried many things through the years to try to get people to see this because I know that if I can connect with them and if I can get them to that point where they start looking at this as something they get to do and get excited about it rather than a chore that they have to do every day, their whole life can change from this practice. So I've come up with three things that I like people to spend a little bit of time and consideration with when they're thinking about starting this practice. And I find that if they really put some heartfelt thought into this, that they'll be a lot more likely to be successful with the practice. And the first one is understanding what's the purpose of you wanting to do the practice? What's your why? What do you want to get out of this training? And once you figure that out, maybe it's you want to stay healthy into your later years to watch your grandkids grow up, or maybe you're dealing with a stress disorder and you need something to help manage that, or maybe you're an athlete looking to improve your performance. Whatever that is, and then once you have that, take it a little bit deeper and think about if you accomplish that goal, what are all the things in your life that are going to change because you reach that level of awareness? Maybe it is your relationships or your work or just your interpersonal communication, whatever that is for you. And then flip the coin and think of 10 or 20 negative things that will happen if you don't accomplish that goal. And the reason why this is important is because we all need that boost or that little bit of fuel that helps us on those times where we don't feel like doing the practice. But when we realize that there's a reason why we're doing this and a motivation behind it, it helps us get through those kind of downturns. And then the next thing, which is extremely important, is understanding the importance of consistency. And with any meditation practice, you have to be diligent and do this on a regular basis. You know, there's this story that I really enjoy about this old stonecutter in ancient China, and he's very well known all across the land. And he creates these beautiful sculptures of animals and landscapes. And when people see his work, they know it's his because it's just something special about it, a little bit different than everybody else's. And because he's so well known, he has people from all over come to study with him, and they'll live with him for a few years at a time to learn the trade. Well, every morning, this stonecutter starts his day off down at the river doing a meditation. And one day after his meditation, he's walking along the river, and he has this profound vision of this big, 6-foot tall, mystical Chinese jade dragon. And he's so taken by this image that he decides this is going to be his next project. Now, he travels all around the area looking for this perfect rock. A few months, finally he found the stone that he wants to use. He brought it back to his place, and he spent a number of days just looking at the stone and trying to feel the energy from the stone and seeing how this dragon is going to appear. Well, after a few days, he decides he's going to start and begin his work. He carefully places his chisel on the backside of the rock and starts tapping away with his hammer. Hundreds, if not thousands of times a day, he's still tapping on the chisel, and nothing was changing. A few days go by, nothing changed. A few more days went by, and a couple of his apprentices started thinking, man, maybe he should try something else. Is this going to work? And a few more days went by, and finally he tapped the stone, and this big 3-foot section comes off the backside of the rock, and it created this smooth, slightly curved line that was soon to be part of the dragon's back. And one of his apprentices said, how did you know that that strike was going to break the stone? And the stonecutter said, it wasn't that strike that broke the stone, it was the thousands of strikes before it that broke the stone. And with a bit of a discouraged look on his face, the apprentice said, but I've been watching you and nothing was changing, not even a crack. Why did you keep doing the same thing? Why didn't you try something else? And the stonecutter got down on one knee and he carefully ran his hand along the smooth line that he just created. And he said, each strike was not wasted. The stone was changing beneath the surface. And even though we couldn't see it with the naked eye, through that constant repetition and effort, not only was the stone changing, but so was the one who wields the hammer. And the reason why I like this story so much is because it's closely related to the meditative arts in that we're practicing these breathing strategies and these movement practices, these philosophical concepts that we don't always see the changes day to day, but through our consistent effort and repetition, it gives us the foundation to reap these fruits for the rest of our life. So understanding that consistency with your practice and going into the practice knowing that, I think, is really beneficial. And then the third and final thing that I like people to spend a little bit of time thinking about is you have to have a guide. Now, it doesn't mean you need somebody in your town, but you have to have somebody that, whether it's a program that you're in or some kind of a system to help you build a practice and create an evolving life practice. Because, you know, I've mentioned already on YouTube, there's millions of videos out there. And if you think that you're going to be self-taught in a practice that's this deep and this profound, you're never going to get past the surface, and I've, been running this academy for 30 years. I've had students come in here that have been self-taught and they've been training for 15 years, and they'll come in and they'll see somebody who's only been around 6 months that's further along in their practice because they've had somebody to help guide them down the path. And so finding your why and putting some heartfelt thought into it, understanding the idea of consistency and having somebody in your corner to help point you down the right direction, you're a lot more likely to be successful with the practice.